Hi guys, today we are going to be reacting to Geography Now, and it's going to be in Brazil. We've personally never done a Brazilian reaction, but hopefully in the future we can plan on doing more.
Yep, and we don't really know much about Brazil, but if you have videos or anything recommendation about Brazil, please let us know in the comment section.
Yep.
And if you like this reaction, please do subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Let's do it.
World. Obviously, I won't be able to cover everything within about 10 minutes. I'll try to do my best, but in the meantime, soccer, monkeys, Amazon, Ronaldo, and samba songs, capoeira,
Amazon is in
anacondas,
Brazil? Oh my
carnaval,
God.
and attractive people that kind of have like tan skin. Oh, come on, guys. You knew that was coming.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. I guess that's a thing now. And after weeks of anticipation, we finally finished the Brazil video. And you know how we start these things. Let's dissect the flag. The flag of Brazil has a green field with a yellow rhombus in the middle and a blue disc in the center with 27 stars scattered throughout the...
I personally have not known about this flag.
Me too.
I knew it had green, but nothing else.
The disc and the country's motto depicted on a white band sprawled across the blue disc. Some people might tell you that the green represents forests and yellow represents gold, but yeah, that's not really true. The green and yellow are actually inspired from the former imperial flag of Brazil, which was derived from two royal households, the green representing the House of Braganza for King Dom Pedro I, and the yellow for the House of Habsburg that his wife Maria Leopoldina came from. The blue disc and the stars are what make up the most fun part of this flag. Each star represents one of the 27 states of Brazil. Furthermore, they are all separated into 9 different constellations that you can typically see in the southern hemisphere. Straddling across the blue disc is a banner with the country's motto, Ordem e Progresso, which means order and progress. A flag with stars representing each state in the country. Ah, Brazil. I think there's some people that can gel well with that.
Yeah.
Now here's where things get a little fun, because each section of Brazil kind of has its own little story. But first, Brazil is the largest country in the South American continent. If you grew up in Latin America, you would have been told that both South and North America are together one continent, but for pragmatic definitional reasons, we're just going to treat South America as a separate entity, as its own continent. Brazil's domain stretches all the way from the Atlantic coast and deep into the interior of the continent.
It's so
Brazil
much
is bordered
bigger
by
than I
every
thought it
single
was.
South American country
I
except
know.
for Ecuador and Chile. You could also technically say that Brazil borders France. Why? Because of this little guy, French Guiana. That's right, this is not a country, but rather an overseas territory of France. It's okay, raise your hand if you just learned that. You're learning. The country's capital is the aptly named Brasilia, located slightly inland in the central west region of Brazil, and actually administers itself in its own federal district, much like Washington, D.C. Brasilia was actually built in 1960 as they were switching
That's a
from the
long
old
time
capital,
ago.
Rio de Janeiro. That's right, it's pronounced Rio de Janeiro, not Rio de Janeiro. Get it right, we're not in Mexico, this is Portuguese, not Spanish. This was done in an attempt to provide a more regional neutrality for the rest of the states in Brazil by centralizing the capital. Brazil is divided into 27 federative units, 26 of which are states, and 1 federal district, which is where the capital resides. Each state and region of Brazil has their own unique flavor that they bring to the table, and we'll discuss more about that in the demographics, but essentially it kind of goes like this. We grow food. We got all the money. We are so black. We are so white. Stop cutting our trees. In terms of disputes, Brazil has 2 disputed areas with Bolivia on the Mamoré River and 2 disputed areas with Uruguay on the Uruguay River and in the Masoeiro Rivera that nobody cares about. Funny backstory, Uruguay actually used to be part of Brazil, known as the Cisplatina province, yada yada
I
yada.
did
There
not
was
know
war,
that.
they gained
I
their
thought that was
independence. Brazil
in
has a ton
Africa.
of islands off their coast, but the furthest reaches of the Brazilian domain
Me
would have
too.
to be the 4 island and archipelago chains in the Atlantic, Fernando de Noronha, the Rocas Atoll, the St. Peter and St. Paul Rocks, which is a non-permanent residence science lab station, and Trindade and Martin Vaz. Otherwise,
These
the
are so
western
pretty.
mainland borders look kind of funny. If you look at the map, it kind of looks like Brazil has river Tourette syndrome, in which they have a lot of half rivers, but then they jump onto the next adjacent river, which is like a couple hundred kilometers away. It's like, I'll take part of the Rio Acre, but then, I'll cut through and make my way over to the Rio Puros. I'll take the Rio Santa Rosa, but then, I'll jump over to Rio Breu. This all had to do with centuries of disputes with the former empires, and today you have this massive piece of sovereign complexity. And that's just the borders. Wait till you see what's inside the borders. When you think
What'd you think of the first part?
I don't know. I didn't know that it's really big
Yeah.
country
Uh-huh.
and like Uruguay. I thought it was in Africa.
Yeah. As you can tell, we don't know a lot about
Yeah.
geography, which we're trying to learn more about.
Yep.
But so far, this is really interesting. And I have always wanted to go to Brazil, but learning more about it might make me want to go more.
Think of
Yeah, me
Brazil,
too.
everybody just kind of automatically defaults to one image, the Amazon. And yes, the Amazon is a
yep.
very imperative factor
Amazon
to
and
the
Rio
nation's
for
domain.
me
However, there's a
personally.
lot more to it in terms of landscape
I
and
heard
terrain.
it's
First of all, about
scary.
60% of the entire Amazon rainforest is located in Brazil, mostly in the north region, and of course, no surprise, consists of the
That's crazy. 60%?
That is a
Oh,
lot.
oh my gosh. Imagine all the creatures there. That'd be scary how big the spiders
will-
would get.
I know.
And
we,
snakes.
I know. We will not be alive.
No, personally, I don't think I could do it going in the Amazon forest, but I'd love to go see some city there. Or mountains.
most heavily compact ecoregion on Earth. Out of all the 10 million species of animals and insects known
Oh
to
my
human
God, what
beings,
parrot?
about half of them call the
Not
Amazon
that.
rainforest
That
home. Many of the species
tiger.
that have yet to be discovered
Oh,
are still
slimy.
lingering
That's
about
so
in the deep,
cute.
uncharted depths of the Amazon today. Now, we all know that there's a huge deforestation problem going on in Brazil and the Amazon to provide more agricultural land. However, even Brazil's own citizens are harshly criticizing the action. It's a little tricky though,
good.
because with Brazil's rapidly growing population, more resources are demanded of the people. So it's kind of like, we get it, it's bad, but I mean, what do you want us to do? Our country is growing and we need to provide you people with more stuff. Use alternative methods! Like what? We're working on it! Otherwise, outside of the Amazon, the rest of the country has a vast array of contrasting scenery almost equally as fascinating. Along the coast, you have the Mata Atlantica, or the
Oh,
Atlantic
that's so
Forest,
pretty.
the Cerrado, or the tropical savannas in the center. This is also the area where most farms and ranches can be found. Also, keep in mind, Brazil is one of the top countries in meat production and exports. In the south, you have the
Oh,
Araucaria, or the
interesting.
pine evergreen forests. In the north,
Those
you
are
have the
pretty.
small mountains, especially close to the border of Venezuela, in which you can
See,
find
that's
one
where
of
I
the most
would go.
notable natural landmarks being the tri-point border between Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil, Mount Roraima, even though Brazil only owns about 5%
Oh,
of the mountain.
my
But still,
gosh.
it counts.
Beautiful.
Roraima is one of the strangest looking flat-top plateau
Yeah.
mountains with vertical cliffs almost perpendicular to the ground, earning it the label as one of the hardest mountains to climb. Fun side note, Mount Roraima was one of the areas that inspired the scenery for the Pixar movie Up, which is
Have you ever watched that movie?
No, but I've seen it. But like, just see like reels maybe about it. But
Maybe next thing, she reacts to Up. Best kids movie ever.
yeah.
I love it. It's so good.
Which is a great movie, by the way. Go ahead, watch it.
Uh-huh,
With that said,
uh-huh.
Pixar and Disney, you can't sue me for copyright infringement rights for using
I
a
don't
clip of your
think I've
movie in
seen
my
that,
corner
no.
box here because in accordance with fair
No
use
way.
limitation rights, I commented and gave a critique on your material. Just letting you know, you can't sue me. One of the most remarkably bizarre and unusual spots of the country, though, would have to be the famous flooded deserts of Lençóis Maranhenses.
that's
This place,
cool.
located on the north coast of the Maranhão state, is almost alien-like, as there are virtually no places like it on Earth. Essentially, it's a sand dune desert with abundant lagoons speckled throughout the entire region.
Oh,
Although it gets a
that's
lot of rainfall
cool.
yearly, the area supports little
Imagine
vegetation
walking
and
with that
wildlife.
all
Nonetheless,
day
the area
without
draws in thousands of tourists.
Having water.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
I know.
That'd be really hot, it looks like.
Yearly, as it contains the almost paradoxical juxtaposition of elements in its scenery. It's not every day that you see a flooded desert. All right, let's talk about the Brazilian people.
What'd you think of the reaction to that so far?
All I can say is I'm very afraid to go to the Amazon. I feel like we're not gonna survive there all day. Like I've heard that they can the big snake are there.
Yeah, that's scary. I'm personally not scared of little ones, but big ones like anacondas, no. Cheetahs, lions, tigers, scary.
I know. Like all
Panthers,
of
all that stuff scary.
the scared creatures. Heck no.
Yeah, might have to bring like protection. Wear
I-
body armor.
I don't think that's gonna help.
Biscoito, bolacha, biscoito, bolacha. Yeah, we'll explain what that means in a little bit. But first, now of course Brazil is incredibly diverse, but before we get into that little pie graph thingamajiglet that we always do here in the demographics section, I feel like it's very crucial to mention one important thing about Brazil's people. Now, everybody knows that one of the most dramatically unique traits of Brazil would have to be its people. When asked, what do you think a Brazilian looks like? The stereotype is somebody with a perfectly bronzed,
Yeah.
toned body and with slight Germanic features. One reason why this stereotype has been perpetuated so extensively is because, in a strange way, it's kind of true. Over the course of a few hundred years since colonization, Brazil's population has actually virtually invented an entirely new race that never exactly existed before, and it makes up nearly half of the entire population. I'm talking about the Pardo people. Now, although the definition is vague and up for relative dispute, essentially this is the easiest way I can describe it. Pardo people are kind of like people that are either too white to be black or too black to be white, and there's probably a little bit of Amerindian in there. That being said, now let's jump into the pie graph. Brazil has about 202 million people, making it the 5th most populous country in the world, right behind Indonesia. About 47% of the people identify as white, about 43% identify as Pardo, about 8% are black, 1.5 Asian, and a very small portion, about 0.5% of the population, are Amerindian. Speaking of Asians, at about 1.5 million strong, Brazil is actually the country with the largest Japanese population outside of Japan. About 70% of whom live in the city of Sao Paulo. Asians have actually historically been
70%?
migrating to Brazil for centuries. In terms of socio-regional distinctions, Brazil has quite the buffet of ethnic enclaves. For one, you can typically find more black people in the north, and especially in the Bahia state, where they make up over half of the entire population. This is also the area where you can disputably find some of the best capoeira masters in the world, as it is believed to have originated in this area. In the south, and more specifically in the Rio Grande do Sul state, you have one of the largest white populations in the entire country, with immigrants coming from places like Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. In fact, many of these places have remained relatively untouched by the rest of Brazil, and many of the communities still
that's
retain the mother
interesting.
language of the country the members of the community came from. Oh, and there's a joke in Brazil that nobody has met anybody from the state of Acre. It's so far and secluded that you may as well just call it North Bolivia. It's mine, Brazil! Nope, too bad, we won it in the war, it's still ours, deal with it. Then of course you have the various native tribal groups. There are about 240 tribes that a little over 900,000 people claim to be a part
that's
of
a
ethnically.
lot.
The government has recognized 690 territories and reservations for these various people groups that make up about 13% of the entire country's landmass, nearly
That's a
all of it
decent amount.
localized in the Amazon rainforest. Brazil's governmental agency for tribal peoples has a list of about 80 uncontacted tribal groups that deliberately choose to remain disconnected from the rest of the world. The governmental
Is it
agency
the
speculates
people
that
that
there are
live in
still many unnamed,
Amazon?
undiscovered tribes currently living in the vast uncharted forests of the Amazon. Culture-wise, it really depends on where you are in Brazil, but everybody knows that Brazil kind of has a very vibrant way that they carry themselves out to the rest of the world.
Yep.
The center of culture, disputably, being
That's
Rio
where I
de
wanna
Janeiro,
go.
and the
So
economic
pretty
capital
there.
being Sao Paulo. Most of the population lives within driving
I really
distance of
thought
the
all
coast,
the
so
people
there is,
there
in a sense, a
are
prevalent
white.
beach culture,
really?
especially for the people on the east side of the country. Not everybody in Brazil loves soccer. In fact, many places prefer basketball, and skateboarding has actually been
That's
a huge thing that's been
crazy.
exploding over the past few years. And no, not everybody has been to a carnival. Oh, and another thing, there's
The movie Rio with the birds, that made me think that absolutely everyone there like just loves soccer so much. Have you watched that movie?
Yeah, I think I watched it.
The bird one?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's crazy.
There's currently a war going on in Brazil. It's been very brutal. It's been going on for decades, and it's getting quite intense right now. I'm talking about the cookie war. In Brazil, people will ridicule you if you pronounce the word for cookie differently from them, and especially it's a whole Rio versus Sao Paulo thing. People in Sao Paulo will call it bolacha, and the people in Rio will call it biscoito. This conflict has led to the violence and deaths, leading in the victimization of people caught in the crossfire. And you almost fell for it, didn't you? Now let's talk about their relationships. Now, Brazil kind of gets along with everyone, but he's kind of like that friend that ventures off and does whatever he wants while you wait in the hallway until he comes back from doing whatever he's doing. First off, pretty much all of their neighbor nations get along with them, although Argentina has a huge competitive hatred for Brazil when it comes to soccer. But all of that aside, they have good relations and trade policies. Then, just like I mentioned before in the Angola video, they get along with other nations of the former Portuguese Empire like Angola, Mozambique, Sao Tome and Principe, Cabo Verde, and so on. They even get along with Portugal and have no bitterness towards the former colonization. Now, when it comes to
it's
the
good to get along
US, for
with people.
centuries they've been good friends and have a deep history of trade and alliances. However,
relationship.
recently Brazil has been kind of diddle-doddling off, making friends with other people that kind of give the US and the old shifty eye. Then we have Venezuela and Cuba. Brazil has sided with the Venezuelan government more in the past few decades and has built a $1.5 billion port in Cuba. Then we have Iran. Recently, Brazil has been testing the waters on attempting to build ties with them, although they haven't really improved much recently. Nonetheless, Brazil is quite the popular guy. Not many people dislike Brazil, except for maybe the Brazilians in Brazil that may complain about their own country's administrative affairs, but that's a lesson you'll have to learn by talking to an actual Brazilian
That's
person,
everywhere,
not
I
me.
feel
Plus,
like.
we're all
Yeah.
In conclusion, Brazil is so much more than just the Amazon and soccer, and we didn't even scratch the surface of Brazil in this video. And to find out more, I recommend just talk to a Brazilian. Just remember which side of the cookie you're on. Stay tuned, Brunei is coming up next.
Cool. Maybe I'll have to watch that one.
Hey, Jack.
What'd you think of the video?
It's very interesting and
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot going on though.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to Brazil than I originally knew about.
Me too.
Yeah. I think in the future we might have to go there. But let me know. Cut that out.
But yeah, maybe one day we will go to Brazil
Mm-hmm.
in Amazon.
Yeah. Let us know if you have anything that you'd want us to watch that is Brazil related or anything else related, honestly. But yeah, please like and subscribe. Bye.